It's been 6 years of podcasting, and without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to bring these podcasts to you. So I want to thank today's sponsors. And first off, we have the Pretentious Pickle Company of 190 Water Street in Plymouth. If you haven't had a chance to get down there, go down and check out what they make. They have everything pickled you can imagine, from pickled beets to carrots to mushrooms to onions to Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. They even have pickled or pickled flavor cotton candy, I should say. They make it fresh there every day, and you can go in there and check out what they have to offer. And if you're not in the Plymouth area, you can go to pretentiouspickle.com and check out what they have to offer there as well, and they will ship it out to you. Their stuff is delicious. You should check it out, and they are big fans of ours, and we are big fans of theirs. So thank you to the Pretentious Pickle Company for sponsoring today's episode. And our second sponsor today is Moonrise Cinemas. Moonrise Cinemas is a new drive-in in Plymouth. Right on the Plymouth-Kingston line. They are located at 428 Court Street in Plymouth, Mass. And they offer a great selection of movies. You can go. It's very family-friendly. I went and checked out the Goonies there. They've had Marvel movies, a wide variety of stuff. And they're really starting to expand. They have had the Rocky Horror Picture Show this coming year. They're doing music on Thursday nights. On Wednesdays are going to be 420 friendly events. So make sure you check out what they have to offer. MoonriseCinemas.com. It's a great venue. They have a beer garden. They have their own food. Their food's phenomenal. And they're bringing back their French toast, which I'm very excited about. So make sure you check out what they have to offer, MoonriseCinemas.com. And if you use code Inebri-art when purchasing tickets, you'll get 10% off. So make sure you go to MoonriseCinemas.com to get your tickets for movies, concerts, and more, and use code Inebri-art for 10% off on your purchase. And now let's jump right into the podcast. Welcome back, Inebri-art. This is Andy, the Inebri-art podcast, as always. And today I am joined by a new movie director with a background in the music industry, Dave McLean. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be here, mate. Yeah, lovely.
So I get so many PR announcements through my inbox, and yours caught my attention because I think there was some sort of quote there that said it was the train spotting of our generation, or the new generation, or something along those lines. And that just caught my attention. I watched the trailer and I was kind of really, really impressed. Like I'm excited to see this movie. It's called Schemers, and it's is it completely autobiographical? Is it more like a Almost Famous kind of thing? How would you describe this movie?
Well, that little period that is kind of documented in the film is only over about 6 months. And it's just exactly what happened over 6 months. It's just like a little snapshot of what I did. So, yeah, I suppose it's autobiographical, or what we're expressing is, yeah. That's exactly what it is, yeah. It's a bit crazy, but it's all true. And, it's all, you know how the one little incident can spin off like an entire story. So
sure,
it's all based on a true story, and the incidents kind of happened in one shape or form, but names have been changed, etc. You know, the usual
to protect the guilty,
to protect the innocent, to protect the innocent, or protect the guilty, or whatever. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you can tell us a little bit about obviously the movie's about you and getting into the music industry. How did all that even come to be in the first place? Like, were you always into music and bands?
No, never into music in the slightest. My brother was always into music. He was really great at music. He still is. He's sitting in the next room actually just now. And I was always into football, and I was kind of pretty good at football until one day on a frosty morning before the game, I had a double vodka and orange and went out and thought I could be like George Best. You probably never heard of George Best, but he's like
No.
Maradona or Messi or some Ronaldo or something like of the day. And some guy broke my leg, so that was the end of my football thing. And I was at college, but I was still connected to football because we needed to get football strips. And to do that, my friend John suggested running a disco. And simultaneously, along with this time, I really fancied this girl at the college.
Mm-hmm.
And I could never pluck up the courage to talk to her. And John said, tell you what, we'll run this disco and you sell her tickets. And she used to sit with 6 of her friends. So I thought, right, well, I never talked to her, not 6 of them, definitely not 6 of them. Anyway, with the tickets, I felt emboldened to go across and say, girls, I'm a promoter, I'm running a disco, do you want some tickets? And they said no. So that was, it was quite blank.
Yeah.
And I said, they're only £2.50 each. No. I went, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you them. Okay. So I gave them 6. I gave them 6 tickets. So I went back to see John. And he said, how did it go? I says, great, they're all coming. He says, fantastic, that's £62.50, that's £15. I went, well, no, really, they're on the guest list. He says, Dave, that is not a good business model. Right? But anyway, so we did the disco. And we paid a DJ 50, I'll say dollars instead of pounds, right?
Yeah.
We paid a DJ $50 and we made $1,000 profit, right? It was ridiculous. It was great. So after buying the football strips, which was $100, we had $900 left. And we did discos for a few months. And then I said, you know what, John, this discos is boring, like, man. Let's do bands. So instead of making $1,000 a night and paying a DJ $50, we started paying a band $1,000 a night and making nothing. But it looked cool.
Yeah.
It looked good. So you're doing The Cure and Ultravox and Susie and the Banshees or whatever it was, loads and loads of bands. But it looked really good, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of make you, this is not politically correct these days, of course, but it made you a bit more attractive to the female persuasion. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's why we got into it, you know?
It's funny because,
And that was it.
I talked to a lot of musicians and a lot of them say, they picked up their guitar or the drums or whatever because, they were a teenager and they were looking to impress girls or whatever. And so it's the story is old as time.
That's the only reason.
At what point
there's no other reason. That was it. And then, so I got into that.
At what point did you realize it could be a career?
Well, not immediately, it has to be said. We did all these early bands, like the ones I mentioned, like obscure bands like Gang of Four, Fisher's Head, Only Ones, all that sort of stuff.
You mentioned
really good.
You mentioned Susie and the Banshees. I wouldn't call her obscure.
Oh no! I mean, no, not obscure, but not like massive or anything. They're just like doing 1,000 people or something like that. And then we did all these gigs and we got into trouble because we were owed money to this kind of gangster guy. And the only way we could square up the money was by doing a huge gig and making lots of money. You know what I mean? That was our theory anyway, right? So instead of doing gigs at a 500 capacity club, we did one at a 2,200 capacity venue. And that was Iron Maiden. So we did them. And more by total accident than design, certainly not by my efforts, because I was utterly hopeless. We ended up doing about 1,600 people and making enough money to pay off the guys. So then I got into the promotions thing. So kind of went from there, really. But the little caveat to that story is it's not in the film. The money I made on that gig, I went to the casino and put it on black at roulette and lost everything. So I had to walk 5 miles home because I couldn't afford the taxi. So that was that. And then I left Dundee under has to be said, a cloud of some sort, and ended up as a lifeguard attendant at a hotel, a lifeguard, which was unusual in so much as I couldn't swim. So that was that. But my brother got me the job, and after two years dilly-dallying about that, I had to leave under another cloud, a bigger cloud actually, and I picked up the promotions baton again. and moved to London. That was it.
And I mean, working with Iron Maiden in that early in your career, like how did something like that come to be? Like, did you know people in the industry already? Was Iron Maiden not nearly
Never
as
knew
big as they are
anybody.
now? Did you
Never knew anybody.
just pick up the phone and call them?
In fact, I met Iron Maiden last week, the management, in a great pub if you're in London called the Cadogan Arms. And they gave me the footage for the movie for nothing on the premise that I bought them lunch. So I bought them lunch last week, 3 years delayed because of COVID.
Yeah.
So inflation paid its price there, but it was still very much cheaper than paying for the footage. So no, I never knew Iron Maiden from the man in the street. To be honest with you, I phoned this agent phoned me up. First of all, I phoned this agent and said, it's in the film, I want to book Fleetwood Mac, Pink Floyd, and the Stones. And after the receptionist had stopped laughing, she put me through to the agent. And the agent said, and this is honest to God what he said. He said, if you want to book any of these bands, it's going to cost you £1,000 a mile. I went, £1,000 a mile? What are you talking about? So I got the A to Z. We used to have a thing called the A to Z, and you could work out the mileage from London to Dundee. I went, that's got to be about £1 million. That's too much for me. Like, he says, well, that's what it is. He hung up the phone. So then I phoned up later. He says, have you got any other bands? He says, I've got a band called Iron Maiden, going to be huge. And it's like in the film, I'd never heard of them. Literally. Yeah. Like I said, right, great, give me them. How much? So don't know what it was. A couple of grand or something. It wasn't that much anyway. But like it was enough. It was a lot compared to what we used to pay. He says, but they're going to be huge, blah, blah, blah. So we booked the biggest venue in Dundee, and we booked them, and that was that. And the rest is literally history. And it worked out okay.
It's funny. That is such a great technique, and I actually use it myself all the time because I'll get in my head like, oh, this person would be great for the podcast, and I'll reach out to their PR and kind of explain who we are, and say 9.5 times out of 10 I get turned down, but then I'm always like, oh well, you have other people, and we're always looking for guests, and it's such a great technique just to kind of be open to that opportunity and throw it out there. Yeah,
just sort of like try things. But the funny thing is, I never did any promotion. It's like in the film, right? I got the contract, stuffed it under the couch, never read it, right? And then my dad said to me one day, he says, hey, Davey, he said, you've got that gig on, and in your bedroom there's at least 200 posters. I went, yeah, no, Dad. He said, the gig's in 2 days, son. I went, yeah. He said, I'll put them up tomorrow. He said, get off your arse. Let's get these. And me and him went and put the posters up all over Dundee. And it was nuts. And on the day of the gig, we'd only sold 200 tickets. And it held 2,300. And the band turned up. And how's it going? And the manager said, how's it going? I went, oh, it's going awesome. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love it, mate. Yeah, superb. And I took them all to the pub. And, we all had a few drinks. But prior to that, the manager had said, where's the crew? I never had any crew. I thought he's talking about a ship or something, or a boat or something like that. I never knew what they were. He says, no, people to help with the gear. I went, oh, right. And I looked across the street, and there were these 4 kind of junkies, alkies were sitting about having the smoke and that. I went, why, boys, what's happening? Much on today? And they went, no, nothing's happening, Dave. I went, oh, come on, got a wee job for you. So that was the crew. Then he asked for the catering. I says, how do you make the catering? He says, well, breakfast. I went, well, there's a wee cafe around the corner there. He says, you're meant to supply it. I went, all right, okay. And then same for dinner. So I phoned my mum. We used to say this multi-story, I don't know what you call them in America, but high-rise flats are really dumped, like, with loads of junkies and glue sniffers and all that shit. And I said to my mum, got a problem. She says, what is it? I says, I need you to come down and cook breakfast for 30 people, then lunch, then dinner. And then she said, where will I get the money? I says, all your holiday money that you're saving in that big whiskey bottle. It's packed with pound notes. I've seen it. So she smashed open this bottle and went to Asda, the supermarket, came down, made all the sandwiches. My dad was spreading the rolls. And it was a team effort. Yeah. And on the night, God knows what happened, but on the night, like we had about a 1,200 walk-up. Like, you'd never get that now because everybody buys in advance. But
Right.
in these days, it's more sort of word of mouth, and people kind of got the drift. And they just all turned up, and it ended up being a roaring success. And I lost all the money at roulette that same night, as I think I mentioned. I went to the casino with my share of the profit and lost it all in a black and had to walk home. So there you go.
I love that kind of just figuring it out as you go. Did you approach directing the same way?
Well, the directed story is funny because the film was shot. Believe you me, this is probably the first person you have ever talked to that did 3 shoots. Right, the first shoot I had a director, in inverted commas, right, loosely called the director, and did 43 hours of footage, and then he never showed me any rushes or whatever you call it every day, and he presented me with the film. At which point I contemplated jumping off the bridge that's in Dundee. There's 2 bridges.
Yeah.
There's a very high one and there's a lower one. I was going to go for the higher one just to make a bigger impact and kill myself. And then I thought, right, okay, you're gone. Your history. See you later. And the DOP guy suggested I get this editor in. So he got this editor called Khalid Spiewak. This editor come. He said, Dave, there's loads of footage here. We could put a movie together here, but scenes need to be rewritten to tie it together for the continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So I got Khalid out to Bangkok, and I wrote all these new scenes, mainly me, kind of a little bit of him. And then we came back, and then I directed the second part. But the funny thing is, the first part was shot in May in Dundee, which was 80 degrees and sunny.
Yeah.
And the second part was shot in January, -10. But it was sunny. It was sunny. But before the actors would do their takes or whatever it's called, they'd be wrapped up in hot water bottles and blankets. So they'd come out pretending it was June, right? So that was good. And the only way that you could really tell is when they're on the bridge and Davy and Sean are walking over the bridge. And Davy, who's played by Conor Berry, who's brilliant, has a little droplet coming out his nose. It's like quite funny if you. It's like an icicle or something like, So that was that. And then, so that was my part of the direct. That other guy who shall remain nameless did the first half. I did the second half, and then the third bit was a 1-day shoot where we had to reshoot the Iron Maiden scene, and they agreed to give me the footage from a concert for lunch.
Yeah,
for lunch, just for lunch. Nobody even had to pay for it. If I would rewrite their manager scene. And reshoot. So we did that. So I can pretty much guarantee that it's not in the A to Z of directing. Okay.
Most likely not.
Definitely not. 100% not.
Did you overall enjoy the whole process? And is it like, do you have like a sequel in mind for like later in the career?
The sequel's brilliant. I've got 3 other films, right? But and the scripts are all written for the 3 movies. I've got everything in place. It's really exciting. But did I enjoy the first part? The first part. See, you can always get gold out of rubbish. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you seek it hard enough, right? So the first part is part of a book I'm writing because it's so funny. Because the first part was so bad, it's funny. So you have to write it down, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually paid dividends because that's in a book. The second part was brilliant because it was just a fantastic laugh. And the third part, I never knew much about because it was only 1 day and I was back in Bangkok. So yeah, overall it was a great experience and it inspired me to do more films. And the follow-up is called Sold Out, which is in London, 1986 to 1994. And all the bands I promoted during that time, the jobs I had, the stupid things I did, the scrapes I got into. And it really centres around me and a guy, Scott Young. You need to Google Scott Young's name. Scott Young, Dundee property. And it comes up 10 million hits or something. He died in very mysterious circumstances. So he kind of went his way and did his thing.
Yeah.
And I went my way and did my thing. And I was into music. He was into his business. So the soundtracks along the lines of, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pumpkins and all that. And I'm dealing with dodgy people. He's dealing with extremely dodgy people. It's a real kind of behind the scenes music business where everything goes on that nobody really talks about, like blackmail, corruption, bribery, threatening behavior, intimidation, but funny. You have to laugh it off,
Yeah.
So it kind of boils down to, I got really successful doing what I did. He got really successful doing what he did. Then the big thing was I was going to do Nirvana for a huge festival because we used to promote all their shows. Kurt died. Looks like the end of the world for me. Then I get a tape through the box, gets brought in by this guy. It's Placebo, who has still managed to this day, whose album's going to be number one loads of places this week. And I get that tape. So that's the way it finishes. It's like everything's going great. Boom. Everything falls down. Boom. And it comes up good at the end. So it's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to that.
That sounds awesome. But I find that to be very much the way is like, not everything you try works out. And sometimes things go out of your control that fall apart. And you just kind of have to keep pushing forward and kind of find the next band or the next artwork or whatever it is that you do to kind of get you through.
Oh yeah. It's like I did I've got another film called Knit and Smoke, which is about a festival I did in Bangkok with Oasis, Snow Patrol, Ian Brown, Placebo, Franz Ferdinand, loads of bands. I was like the first Western guy to do a big festival in Bangkok. It's too long a story, but it's hilarious, right? It's a real culture clash because I live there now, Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's a lot of lost in translation moments, a lot of funny moments, but a lot of kind of pretty scary moments where you really realise, hang on, these guys are actually serious. Who you're sort of mucking about with and trying to be funny. So you got to behave. So that's another film. And it's like you say, sometimes things go wrong. Like I did a gig in Bangkok 12, 13 years ago. I lost $242,000 on a night, one night. And my wife, Tian, she's Thai, she's great, she's awesome. She says, I went back the next day, she said, how did the concert go? I went, I was down, how much you lose? I went, it's 242 grand, which 12 million baht or something. She went, oh, not to worry. You tried to do the good job. Didn't work. I went, only a Buddhist could say that. I mean, if I'd been married to a Scottish girl or something, they would have gone, you stupid bastard, you've lost all that money. We could have bought a house in Phuket or something,
Yeah, I feel like
said,
the Americans would have that similar opinion.
Oh, yeah. But it was like, just keep calm, don't worry, everyone will come back, karma, blah, blah, blah. So that was that. So you win some, you lose some, you just go with the flow.
So you've talked about dealing with a lot of shady people back in the 80s and 90s. Has the industry gotten better, or is that still something that you have to deal with? Or?
Well, for me, it's easy now because I'm the manager of. It's different if you're a manager because the manager rolls up to gig and the promoter's the promoter, whatever he does. So you're paid all your money up front. You get the money from the agent, gets all the money. You're paid in. Doesn't matter what happens. You turn up, do the gig. But when you're a promoter, back in the old days, anything that makes money attracts people, right?
Yep.
So if you're doing gigs with 5,000, 10,000 people a night, and you're running, I mean, we used to run about 10 clubs in London. Camden, New Cross, Brixton, Islington, all over the place, right? But I was a bit naive in these days, So we're running all these clubs and all this business is coming through it. And you obviously things going on. You don't really realise what's going on, but you think, that's a bit unusual, but you just do it. But luckily, and freely admit it, I mean, being friends with Scott was a good ally for me, because Scott went his way, but he always looked out for me. He says, look, I'll always look after you. I respect what you're doing and I do my thing. But if you ever get into trouble, give us a shout,
Yeah.
So I had kind of guardian angels around me while I was doing my stuff. Because it is big business. I mean, there is a lot of money floating about. And wherever there's money, there's going to be people trying to get off you, Simple as that.
Right.
So in my in some of the scripts, because I'm getting on a bit now, I'm like 66. It doesn't matter what happens to me. I can actually tell a story whereby some guy says we should get something done to some guy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I could say, no, you can't do that, because there's an easier way, And many a time I've stepped in between Mr. A and Mr. B to save Mr. X. See you later, because that's not my style. But people can get pretty volatile and pretty pissed off if they've been ripped off for 500 grand or something,
Yeah. So between manager, producer, and director, do you have a particular one that's your favorite, or do they kind of scratch a different itch?
Well, I love being a promoter from whereby you could book a venue, say it was Wembley Arena or something like that, it held 12,000 people or something, and you booked a band like, say, Smashing Pumpkins, right, which we did a lot of, and you put the tickets on sale. And first of all, the first day's ticket sales, you look at them and go, wow, that's a good start, right? And then it's like another 3-4 months to the gig. So you watch the ticket sales creeping up, and it's good, and you get a sellout. Then you go to the gig, and you're there early because you've got to be there for the get in and all that. And you see the PA coming in, the lights and the rig and this going up, and then the doors open, the queues around the block, and the crowd come in, and the buzz, this is the buzz of the crowd, and the drinks are going, and the band come on, and then the place goes mental, then the crowd sort of disappear. Then I always used to think to myself, it's probably quite romantic, crazy sort of thing. But say I've done about 3,000 gigs in my life at venues between 500 and 25, 30,000 or something. Must be millions and millions of people pass through there, And you think, how many people have met each other at these gigs? How many people have gone on to get married at these gigs, get divorced after getting married at these gigs, had kids after these gigs, or whatever,
Yeah.
So once you book a show, even like one small show, could be a small show, 1,000 capacity, you set off a little train of events where somebody can, say if it's in London, somebody in Camden can buy a ticket, somebody in Islington, or somebody in New Cross, or somebody in Finchley, or something like that. They buy a ticket randomly, and they go to that gig. They could bump into somebody randomly at a bar. Hey, how's it going? Whatever. Oh, you're nice. What's your name? Whatever. You set off a little train of events. I always think it's sounds a bit airy-fairy, but kind of, that's what I love, the promoting side of it. The management side is great if you've got a good band. If you manage a rubbish band, it's terrible because nobody comes to the gigs and they get any money, right? So it's a waste of time. But if you're lucky and you get a good band, you get paid loads of money, you get treated great, 5-star hotels, private jets, limousines every place, weighed in with loads of dough, super. So that's good. But then making a film is even probably kind of better because you can make your film with your story, not necessarily my story, but story around about my time or whatever. And then you can set music to I love setting the music to the incidents.
Yeah.
Because see if you see something visual and you've got the right music with it. And then you can put a little bit of script with it that's quite funny. And then you see it on the screen. And then if people laugh at it, go, oh, that's funny, or they get quite scared at it, or you get a reaction, or you win an award or something, people say, something good about it. You're like, yeah, well, you do feel good. That's nice, Yeah. And because I manage bands, and I'm always commenting on the bands about great album, great song, great track, great performance, you did brilliant there, you did great there. Sometimes it's good for me to do my own thing, like for my own satisfaction, and say, oh, you did all right there, Dave. Well done, mate. It's cool.
Yeah, it's weird. After, or actually during COVID lockdown, we inadvertently got into show promotion. Like we're running comedy shows now. We have our first music show coming up in like 2 months. It was never planned. It just kind of fell into our laps, and we were like, all right, I guess we do this now.
That's good.
Yeah. And I loved how you described kind of like, the buzz of the crowd and the crowd coming in and all those little things, because those are kind of the most exciting parts that I've found. We had a show, local comedy show here, and some of the previous comics showed up to kind of like watch the show. And to me, I'm like, that's a huge sign, when the other professionals are stopping by. So as a new show promoter,
100%, yeah.
Do you have any advice?
Well, see, we only used to promote bands that we liked. Like, I was offered like Spice Girls, who were like, I was in Ray Cooper, who used to run Virgin America, Virgin UK, then America. We were going up to see Placebo at Top of the Pops, which is a big TV show back in the day. And he says, come in my car, I've got this new band to play you. So we're going up in the car. He says, what do you think of this? He put it on and he goes, tell me what you want, what you really, really want, what you really, really want. I went, it's fucking terrible, mate. He says, that's my new band. That's my new band, the Spice Girls. We've got Baby, Sporty, whatever they were, right? They all had names. They're going to be massive. Do you want to promote them? I went, no. So he said,
do you regret that? Do you regret that decision? Or are you just like, it just wasn't for me?
No. Yeah. How could you promote like Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, Rage Against the Machine, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots, Hole, Green Day, all that, and then suddenly add in the Spice Girls to your little mix? It's just like nonsense, like, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have a passion for the bands. Every band we promoted, we really like. So I would say to you, don't promote anything you don't like, but there has to be a limit. You can maybe fall in love with one band and you promote them for too long. You think, you know what, nobody else likes them. It's a waste of time. But you've got to give it a chance. Go with your gut feeling at the start.
Yeah.
But once you've maybe had about 3 or 4 gigs where we one band, it's not going to happen, just knock it on the head. But never promote anything for the sake of somebody tell you it's going to be huge. And I mean, if you don't like the music, there's no point doing it because you're just not going to enjoy it. I mean, you have to go to the gigs and then you have to go backstage and say, wow, that was awesome. And I could never say that to big respect to Spice Girls, sold 25 million, 50 million albums, who, I don't know, loads. But I could never have gone backstage and said, I loved the way you did. Give me what I want, what I really want. I could never have done that. I mean, with a straight face, you know, to be honest with you. That's just the way I am.
Yeah, no, that's great because, I mean, it is such a, music is so, individualized. Everyone likes what they like.
Yeah, of course it is.
And there's things I don't like, but it doesn't mean they're not good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's bands that I shouldn't like when it was during COVID, I could have gone 2 ways with me. I could have sat on the bench, like in the sofa, watching Netflix, eating Pringles all day and drinking beer or something, and put on 30 kilos and learn fluent Spanish by watching Narcos Mexico, Colombia, and all that, and Capo and Chapo, and or I could have gone the other way, which is going on the rowing machine every day and doing some weights and that, playing to a rowing list on Spotify that my daughter made for me.
Yeah,
with 5 seconds of summer, One Direction, the Banners, the Blossom. Just pop tunes that were sing along pop tunes that theoretically I shouldn't like by being a grungy rocky promoter. But I was like, this is great. This is brilliant. Yeah. So, like, music can fit any sort of mood you're in, if you know what I mean.
I feel like some of that comes with age too. Like I was in high school in like the very late 80s and early 90s. So like all those bands you promoted were like my musical awakening was when that's when music like really hit home to me. And so, I have a special place in my heart for them. But I feel like as you get older, you're kind of like, it's less trying to find an identity, and you can be like, no, I think Miley Cyrus has a great voice, and I enjoy her music. It's not the stuff I grew up on, but she's a great singer and a great performer. And I feel like getting older, I'm like, that Watermelon Sugar High song is very catchy. It's not my normal thing, but
that's a very good point. I mean, like there's a 5 seconds of summer track or something. It's called "She's So Hot" or something. It's called. And it's just brilliant. It's pop. It's just happy music. It's just good stuff. But I mean, in days of yore, I could hardly go down the pub and say, when I'm with all the grunge lot, say, hey, you know what? Well, of course, it didn't exist at the time. Heard the new 5 seconds of summer track. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You get slapped in the puss, like, you get a Will Smith to you. Boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, but you mellow with age. You mellow,
Yeah. Do you see an up and coming trend, like music wise, locally here, and it's hard to say, like, I don't have the exposure that you may have. But it feels like younger people around here, like I'd say like the early to mid 20s, are listening to a lot of funk music, which I find really surprising. But it seems to be
Funk,
really, yeah, it seems to be really popular now.
Well, what is funk? First of all, give me a funk
Would
two funk tunes.
I would say like George Clinton Empowerment Funkadelic.
All right, stuff like. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually met him once at Lollapalooza, I think it was. I don't know. I was in a bar in Edinburgh last night in Scotland, and like Sly and the Family Stone. That's not funk, is it? That's like
No,
what's
yeah, I wouldn't say it was, but I'd say it's like a cousin of funk, I guess. I
yeah,
don't know.
a lot distant, maybe a
Yeah.
distant cousin, but but I was sitting there having my chicken schnitzel and glass of red wine, and it was Papa was a Rolling Stone, and I thought this music's fantastic. I'm going to come back to this bar again, and then it was playing all this retro Ronettes and all that. I thought this is a great place. So that's the stuff I like. But whether my daughter, she's into, well, I've got two daughters, but the youngest one, she's, funnily enough, because of algorithms, which I hate, like all that algorithm shit, right? She's now saying to me, Dad, have you ever heard of a band called My Chemical Romance? I said, of course I have. Dad, have you ever heard of the Killers? Yes, I've heard of the Killers. Yeah. And Placebo had played 3 shows with My Chemical Romance. There's 100,000 people. We're their special guests, like 3 nights at Milton Keynes. And she thinks I'm pretty cool now because I know these bands. And she says, Dad, Placebo came up on my algorithm today. I went, whoa! And then 5 years ago, she said to me when she was 10, Dad, you've got to book this girl. I said, who? Billie Eilish. I said, never heard of her. Dad, honestly, she was only 10 at the time.
Yeah.
I said, never heard of her. So, of course, 2 years later, I'm going, Billie Eilish, that's that kid you're on about. Like, I said, yeah. So I try to book it like $1 million or something like that. I missed that one.
Yeah.
So, but kids are funny because they get switched on to, like, she's mad on the Arctic Monkeys as well. And I think, where have you heard of the Arctic Monkeys? Oh, it came up on my playlist. And it's like, it's really weird, isn't it? How kids of that age are into the retro stuff. So maybe in your algorithm world in Detroit, that's what comes up in your radio station. I don't know how it works, but maybe that's what it is.
Maybe it's like I'm just trying to, because I when I was a kid, like we would listen to the radio or MTV, and there's still like word of mouth from friends, and you get weird, discovering weird music. But I just don't understand like where my kids find new music. And it's like trying to like, I listen on YouTube and then, of this playlist or whatever. So I'm always curious on like how that works now, because it's so different.
Oh, it's ridiculously different. Like my daughter said to me, she showed me a picture one night of an egg on, what do you call that thing? Not TikTok.
Oh, TikTok.
An egg.
Yeah.
She said, how many likes do you think that egg has? I went, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, 100 million. I went, what, a picture of an egg? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it was like, what? I said, how would it be possible for 100 million people to like a picture of an egg? And she said, oh, because there was another picture that people didn't like. And they said, if you put up a picture of an egg to defeat this picture, it's like, I just give up. Like,
TikTok does
the
make
world's gone mad.
Super old, yeah.
And these stupid dances they do, and oh Jesus Christ, it's like crazy.
So, is there any newer bands that you're listening to that you would recommend to turn people onto? This is my favorite question. I only ask this so I can find out new music. That's fine.
Right. Well, the only 2 new bands I'd recommend, 3 new bands I'd recommend. Funnily enough, I manage them all. Okay, and there's a band called Dea Matrona from Northern Ireland, DEA Matrona, Matrona, who are championed by Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin,
Okay.
the guy in the Eagles that gets Glenn Fry, Van Morrison, people like that, all love them. They've got millions of streams, millions of views. There's 3 girls from Northern Ireland, 17, 19, and 20. There's a kid from the Philippines and Australia that I manage called Rin Rin, who's a cross between Avril Lavigne and Metallica. She's playing loads of she's 20. She's playing loads of shows, festivals in Finland, Sweden, and whatever. And I've got a Thai German rapper called Alyssa Janine Woolman, who's working with Placebo and has got an album coming out in October. And she's 22, half Thai, half German. She had a little fashion shoot last week that got 2.5 million views in 2 days.
Wow.
So I work on the basis that I am basically turning into Christopher Lee, like the vampire. Is that the guy that played the vampire in the horror film?
Yeah.
Because all my new artists seem to be female under 22, and I'm like 66. So I think I've got a cross between Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and the guy that played it originally. Can't remember what his name was. The older guy, the black and white ones. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
That is me. I have turned into that guy. But seriously, but check out these 3, and they're great. I mean, they're all getting great gigs, big shows, huge shows, getting good money. Kind of happening, and it keeps me young. You know, like when you meet people like that, it's hilarious. What one of them said to me, the Thai German rapper girl, Alyssa Janine, said to me, we went out for dinner a few weeks ago. She always calls me Mr. Dave, and the Philippine ones calls me boss. But she said to me, Mr. Dave, what was it like living in the 1930s? 1930s? Fuck, how old do you think I am? And then she realised that she'd got her calculations wrong. It wasn't actually 110, you know. But anyway, I thought it was quick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's quite the innocence of youth, you know.
Yeah. Well, my daughter asked me that kind of question just to get me angry. So, you know.
How old's your daughter? How old's your daughter?
18, and my son's about to turn 20.
Oh, 18.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good then. 18. Because I've got a daughter of 20 and a daughter of 15. So, to be honest with you, I've never had any of that troubled teenage years. Have you had that? Did you get any of that?
No.
Like the troubled...
I haven't, but to be fair, I'm a weekend dad. So I know that, you know, I can't be like, oh, they're a piece of cake, you know, because I got them for all the fun stuff, you know. But great kids.
Yeah, well, you know, to be fair, I'm a checkbook dad.
Yeah,
it's like, Dad, I want this. There you go. Love it. I love you, Dad. You're awesome. Thank you. No problem.
That just reminds me, I gotta order boots.
Boots. I've seen silly. I've got ordered so much stuff. My daughter sent me the stuff. There's a shop in London, and literally, I wake up in the morning. I think, oh, it's going to be a busy day on business day. I've got about 20 texts, but all it is pictures of these clothes and boots and socks and this and that.
Yeah,
and manga books and all that. I think, all right, really like this.
Yeah, that sounds very much like mine.
So,
yeah.
That's
I mean, they're
good.
They're good kids, and I can't complain. You know,
is it guys or daughters you've got?
One of each.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's good. A nice mixture, and So we're coming to America with Placebo in September. You're in Detroit. I don't know we're playing Detroit.
No, we're just south of Boston.
Oh, I don't think we're even playing that. Oh no, yeah, I think it's not announced yet, but watch out for a good announcement in Boston.
Okay, for sure.
Come along. I'll put you on the guest list.
That'd be awesome.
Nobody knows about this yet.
Okay.
Nah, I'll tell you what, it will be awesome. But once you know the bill, it will be awesome. But and it's in Boston. Tea Party. There you go. That was a good song. Alex Harvey Band. Yeah. Boston Tea Party. Dig that with it.
It's a great place to see. I love seeing gigs in Boston. The big venues are great, and we've got some like really small. I went and saw a friend's band play at the Paradise, which is a medium-sized club, and it was like the first concert I got to go to since like COVID kind of like opened up again. So I went and saw the Elevators.
I bet you felt great. Eh?
Oh, it was great. It was weird, but it was great. You know. So
yeah, it's good. Like when I saw Placebo in Berlin the other night. we didn't allow any mobile phones. They all got sealed or whatever it is they do when you come in.
Oh, in those little bags.
And but the atmosphere in the gig, like instead of everybody standing filming for no reason whatsoever, and taking selfies and all that, there was like, say, 1,500, 2,000 people were just like watching the band. And the atmosphere
That's crazy.
Was electric. Well, why are you watching the band? Why don't you get a selfie with me? Yeah. Look at me. I'm like, oh, it's just brilliant. It was a really good night. So that was great. So please keep in touch, though, and maybe drop me an email or something. And we could maybe hook up at the gig in...
yeah, sure.
Is it Chicago or Boston? I can't remember the big gig we're doing, but Chicago or Boston's a big one. But they're quite close. But anyway, it'll be great.
Where can people go to check out Schemers? Is it streaming? Like where is it on?
Yeah, apparently it's on 19 platforms. Our distributor is Gravitas, but I know it's on like the usual what do you call it, Amazons and iTunes and like various. I mean, all these usual devices that you'll see it, But I mean, I suppose I should prepare a bit more professionally and have a big list of things to reel off, but it should be easy enough found, But it's a good wee film. It's a good laugh. Had great reviews. So people either like it or it's not their cup of tea, but generally speaking, people like it and have a laugh. And that's all that matters. Have fun,
Outstanding.
Enjoy. Don't take.
So if you can hang tight, I'm going to end this recording, say bye to our listeners, and then I'm going to grab that email from you once again. So listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys again next week. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.